Ladies and gentlemen, it's 2 o'clock. We've officially started. The webinar has begun. It is so good to see the 382 of you, 383. You're climbing. I love it. We're going to see a whole lot of you. Everyone is going to get a link to the recording of this. So if we say something, you're like, wait, I missed that. Don't worry. You check your email tomorrow. It'll be there waiting for you. And for all the people who you talked about this who aren't able to join live, they'll get the link too. So I want to just start by introducing myself and the 5 other people you're seeing on screen. And then we're going to talk through a handful of kind of themes and topics. And there's space for you to ask questions in the chat and the Q&A feature, and go ahead and leave stuff there. We have someone on our team who's moderating that. And as we have time, we'll bring that in. But before we get into any of that, I want to let you know, we will not cover everything in these 59 minutes we have remaining. This is intentionally we're just gonna like dip our toenail in the water right now. But I want you to know the 5 people you see on screen around me, they are some of the leading experts that I completely trust with this work. So they are great people to stay connected to look up, to continue to send them DMs and messages for more information. And I'm probably gonna be asking them to come on more calls like this, because every Monday, starting tomorrow at 2 p.m., I'm gonna be hosting a How to Do Church online conversation and group coaching call. It's going to be an actual Zoom meeting. This is a Zoom webinar. That's why you can see us, but you can't see each other. We're going to do a Zoom meeting and just invite everyone to come in, and we're going to talk with some people who I think are pretty awesome at this stuff, like these people. And then we're going to have kind of a group coaching conversation. And that's happening every Monday at 2 p.m. If you go to howtodochurchonline.com, you can find out more and click a thing to make sure you're in the list. Actually, all of you are probably going to be on that list pretty easily, because I already have your email address. Anyway, all this to say, let's do a few introductions. I'm going to give you the one-liner, and then I'm going to have everyone give kind of a 30 to 60 second intro, who you are and what your current role in online church is. So we have Sarah Stonecipher Boylan, Dave Adamson, Jeremy Tackett, Natalie Perkins, Kevin Garcia, and I'm Jim Keat. I'll give my 60-second bio. I'm the digital minister at the Riverside Church, and I'm the director of online learning for Convergence. So that means at Riverside, it's the really tall church in New York City, technically the tallest steeple in North America, but who's counting? And I work all of our online content, video, podcasts, and I live remotely from New York. So I do this as I travel, and I make all this stuff. And with Convergence, I am our director of online learning, asking how can we continue to learn the best possible things in the best possible ways for the sake of the best possible world and faith communities we could have. And I get to do things like this. So Sarah, tell us who you are and all your stuff in 60 seconds.
All right. My name is Sarah Stonecipher Boylan. I'm the digital missioner for Virginia Theological Seminary, which is an Episcopal seminary located outside of Washington, D.C. in Alexandria, Virginia. So I've been there for 4 years. And my role in sort of all of this digital worship, digital ministry stuff is, first, I'm the convener of the eFormation Learning Community, which is very dedicated on how to equip leaders to be better within the digital space. So it is focused on sort of bringing our traditional understandings and then sort of blowing it up and fitting it into the internet space. I think why I was chosen to be on this call is because throughout all of that, I have realized sort of the stumbling blocks of putting worship online and what that can actually mean and how it needs to really be transformed into the sacred space that is online. And so, so I have been doing lots and lots and lots of consults over the past 2 weeks. And I thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy, I think, has witnessed many from a distance. And so, I really realize that people need a little bit more handholding when it comes to this, because even though we may be using it within our secular world, it doesn't necessarily carry over into our sacred world and sort of what those leaders are looking for. So I've started doing quick tutorials on Zoom and on Zoom and how it works. And so that's what's been taking up a lot of my time and space, and also getting my team from being primarily in person to being more adept and online.
Just for the record, I have been one of the people Sarah has consulted on how to use Zoom this past week. And thank you. Dave, give us who you are and your current role in church online stuff.
Yeah, I'm Dave. I am on this call, I think, because I've been doing online church since 2008. I went into full-time ministry from the TV world in Australia, where I was a sports reporter and producer, and then went into full-time ministry. And my first role was at a church in New Jersey where I was the online pastor. So I built that from scratch in 2008. And for the past 7 years, I've been at North Point Ministries in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am the social media pastor there. So a huge part of my role is just connecting with people who are connecting for the first time with our church in the online space, whether that's social media, whether that's YouTube, whether that's podcasts. Probably the majority of my time at the moment goes into YouTube and our YouTube strategy, our YouTube channels. We've got 6 churches in Atlanta. And so I leverage YouTube at the moment more than anything else because I've got 3 daughters who are all teenagers. So A, I need your prayers, but B, they're also constantly on YouTube. So I understood the power that YouTube has to reach a whole generation. So a lot of my work goes into that when I'm not doing Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok for the church as well.
TikTok for the church. I haven't seen you post anything online about that, Dave. Well, I'm waiting for that one in the forum.
Maybe I was holding it back to share it today.
Quick spoiler, if you haven't already, Dave moderates a lot of Facebook groups. YouTube Your Church, is that the name of it, right? I just get the alerts.
Yeah, that's right. YouTube Your Church.
YouTube Your Church is a great one. I've really enjoyed all the resources in the community there. And that's definitely a good thing. You should all be joining on Facebook just to connect more with Dave's work and the strategies around YouTube that we can all be doing. So good stuff. Thanks for being here, Dave. Jeremy, you're below me on my screen. Tell us who you are, what you do in this whole crazy online church stuff.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremy Tackett, based here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am the digital evangelist for the Episcopal Church. So I manage all of creative media and social media and web and digital for the church and for presiding Bishop Curry. So I've spent the last 3 years training and working with folks on how we do the work of the church and evangelism digitally. And in the last 2 weeks, that has taken a sharp upturn. So basically, much like Sarah, spent the last couple of weeks triaging and troubleshooting and working with individuals who were trying to do this for maybe the first time, but also figuring out how we take the church-wide message and presiding Bishop Curry and his messaging all over the world right now for this moment. So a lot of innovating on the fly, playing with fun toys and figuring out how you do it without all those fun toys with a cell phone and a pair of AirPods and just bringing the message out to the masses. So hopefully can add some tips and answer some questions for you guys today. Glad to be here.
Jeremy, is it true that you wrote the sermon that Bishop Curry preached at the royal wedding?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Were I to have written it, it would have been the actual 7 minutes they asked for, not the 13 and a half that it was.
Hey, I think we're all grateful it was those 13 and a half minutes.
So are we.
All right, Natalie, tell us who you are, where you are, what you do in this online church world.
Okay, I am Natalie Renee Perkins. I am the digital minister for Middle Collegiate Church in the East Village in New York City. I am currently in Harlem, as we are, I imagine, a great many of you, we're all working remotely from home. A good portion of my work is around trying to help build the actual virtual church for Middle. We use primarily Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, Twitter, but also like some things that happen specifically on our website, some things that happen solely on Zoom, along with like some of the very traditional ways in which you still, can connect with people without actually being in physical presence, like email and phone calling. Imagine. We still use the numbers on those phones. So yeah, it's like a number of you have said, it's ramped up this last week, but we had our very first completely virtual worship today that we were able to build from scratch and launch out at release it at 11:30, so we could still do our pre-roll, and it felt like an actual worship that would have been exactly like if people were in the space, except for literally no one has been inside the building for a number of days. So it was a mix of like archiving pieces from our past and videos that we all sent in and things where we were able to let the congregation participate. It ended up being a really beautiful experience. So we're looking forward to being able to try and continue to help people build community, specifically on Sunday, and then also creating these moments where they can connect throughout the week as well.
Amazing, amazing. And spoiler alert, I used to work at the same church Natalie's currently at, and we worked together there for a bit of time when we crossed paths. So I'm a big fan of everything she's doing there. Kevin Garcia, tell us who you are, where you are, what your role and work is in this online church business.
Absolutely.
So Kevin just wrote a book called Bad Theology Kills, and if you haven't, you should pre-order it right now. We're selling it at Riverside's bookstore, and it's one of our best books. Well, we're not currently selling it because the bookstore is closed, but you know what I mean. Okay. Kevin.
That honors me, and it makes that. Let me tell you what, my ego is just through the roof. You can get it at badtheologykills.com. So, hi, my name is Kevin Miguel Garcia. My preferred pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I am a queer content creator, author, speaker, writer. I call myself a digital pastor because that's the space that I work in, that I live in, especially for queer folks who don't have physical spaces to belong. I am one of the leads in this group called The Wild Beloved. It's a group of very kind of almost like post-church spiritual folks. So I find myself kind of just like with my feet in two worlds a lot of time, because I'm also an active member at Park Avenue Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. And I serve as a worship leader there and just volunteer. And this morning I got our Zoom call together for our first digital church ever, which is what was wild, but it was so beautiful and so holy. And I cried, and I didn't know that I needed to cry. And it was a powerful moment. So I've been doing the work of doing digital ministry and creating content to keep people engaged for the better part of 5 years now. And all of my work now is completely digital. I am also a spiritual director and life coach. So taking Zoom calls, doing pastoral care calls over just regular phone, using text message as a way for people to support one another, partnering people up with like people who don't know how to use technology in order to make sure that they're taken care of. We've been really circling the wagons in a lot of our spaces to make sure that even the most vulnerable folks in our groups are taken care of. And I think that's a beautiful mark of what community is. I think other things like people who have been losing their jobs, like being able to repost their Venmos or their PayPals. I've seen so much generosity arise out of this. And so even though things suck, I've been just blown away by the beautiful things that I have seen. So yeah, I'm a millennial. I've grown up on the internet. The internet is my cousin, my brother, my sister, and my mother. So I know a couple things.
Thanks, Kevin. And everything you all said is exactly why when I had this thought, had people asking me for input and consulting, I was like, I'm just going to text some people I know and see if they'd be up for chatting together online. If nothing else, I think it'll be a fruitful conversation. It'll get a lot of ideas started, and everything you've already said, I think, has already given people a lot to begin thinking about as they move forward in this current moment. And let's be honest, the church needs to be thinking about this church online stuff long after this apocalypse settles itself down. So let's talk about that exactly. We're going to just kind of reverse the order, and you're all going to get 2 to 3 sentences. Why should faith communities have church online? This is our kind of philosophy of online church, so to speak. Like, what's the purpose? Why is this a thing? So you can't just say because the coronavirus. Okay, you could, but I think we all would agree there's a reason to do church online besides the current moment. And that, I think, can truly speak into the ways in which we respond in this moment with this larger kind of approach umbrella to this work. So, Kevin, well, I'm just going to throw you into the middle. You can just jump in and talk. Perfect. Yeah. Why? Give us 2 to 3 sentences. Why should faith communities have church online?
Because there are people who are never going to come to your building. Just point blank, period. There are people who have been either for one reason or another, they can't walk into a church building because of religious trauma or PTSD. They don't want to get up on a Sunday morning because it's annoying and I'd rather go to brunch with my friends. And 3, I think especially during this time when social distancing is really screwing with a whole lot of people's heads, creating this resource, this isn't just going to be after the coronavirus settles down. I feel like even after this, there's going to be some kind of pain that we're carrying, that being able to access spiritual care or spiritual community through something like online church is going to be the thing that's going to not only sustain people through this, but help them get through like what just happened to me afterward, the aftercare of all of this.
Kevin, and I knew you would hit on so much of the pastoral care aspects, which we are going to dive in deep on in a couple beats here. And I think you already hit on some of the needs for that so tightly already. So thanks for that. Natalie, we're coming your way. Why should faith communities have church online?
I think, so a lot of the things that Kevin already said, I think that the model of church didn't seem to evolve. So we're still kind of stuck in a model that doesn't necessarily work for us anymore. And God should get to be in all the places just like everything else gets to be in all the places, right? Like if I can find an entire group of people who are really big fans of left-hand writers, then why can't I find an entire group of people who, you know, want to try and figure out how to commune together with the divine? And I think similarly to what Kevin said, there are people who literally can't be there on Sunday because they're working. We don't live in a society anymore where everything's closed on Sunday. Well, actually right now we live in a society where everything's closed all the time, but in general, we don't live in a society where, so some people have to work on Sundays. They don't have the luxury of being like, yeah, I'm gonna go into this space. And for middle also, we are reaching people who can't find a church that's safe for them to go to from where they are. So this is their way of being able to be in a spiritual space and be able to like feel community and love and grow in their faith in a place that is welcoming and warm and inclusive. And I think, is there anything else I want to add to that? Let me leave it there. We have time. I'll say more things.
That's a good spot. Yeah, no, I think you hit on all of it. Especially the sense of God should be in all the things too. If everything else is on the internet of things, well, what about this whole thing called spirituality? Let's not. Why should we put that literally in a box? So anyway, Jeremy, give us your response. Why should faith communities do this whole church online thing?
Because the digital space is the public square in the 21st century. This is where life is happening, and we've always been called to go where life is, to be in the community and speak and name all of that. And as much as folks are living community at the park or the grocery store, they're living it on Facebook and on Twitter, and that was true much more than 2 weeks ago. And so we are called, our evangelism call is to go out and be among and speak into all of those places. And this is where folks are gathering. So very simply, our call is to be part of it and gather with them and invite them into this big new and ancient thing that God is doing. And so for us to figure out how to do it digitally is just part of the evolution of living in the world we're in.
I love it. Some people might call that incarnational theology, but I call it Little Mermaid theology, because she said, I want to be where the people are. So why?
You want to see him dancing, Jim? You want to see him?
Look at the stuff. Isn't it neat?
I love it.
Jeremy, I totally agree. I think, just to jump out of turn here, back when I first worked at Middle Collegiate Church, when Natalie's at, I didn't have a Facebook profile anymore. I was just like doing other stuff and in love with Twitter, and Facebook was annoying. But I realized all of my congregants at Middle, they were on Facebook, and I was missing out on their prayer requests and the things they were celebrating. I was like, oh, I'm like at this bar, but all of my congregants go to this one. And I keep saying, hey guys, why aren't you hanging out with me? I should just go to that bar. So, sometimes you have to dive into those evils known as Facebook, because it's worth it to connect with real people. Anyway, okay, I'm getting myself.
Come on.
Dave.
I was just going to say, I was told at one point early on in ministry that you have to bring things to people in a vessel in which they recognize. And I think the virtual space is one of those things. Like, how do we put this thing that is the divine that we can't even contain into a space where people like recognize the bites that they're getting?
We need some microphones, because we got to just drop those things. That was it right there.
Not even mine.
All right, Dave, give us your response. Why should faith communities have church online?
Well, you know, everything that Kevin, Jeremy, Natalie already said, for sure, for all of those reasons. So I would gather all them up together, and the only probably two things that I would add is, you know, when I look at the life of the Apostle Paul used the technology of his day to grow the church and connect people with God and teach theology, right? The technology of his day was letter writing. I know Kevin said he was a millennial, so I just want to explain. Letter writing is when you take a pen and you push it down onto paper and you move your wrist around a little bit. That's letter writing. So that was the technology of Paul's day.
Tell me more. I've never heard of this.
We have to leverage the technology of our day to do exactly the same thing, to grow the church, to connect people with God, and to teach theology. And the second point I would have is, you know, YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. It is the place where people go to find answers for everything from fixing their car to fixing their marriage. When there is a 0 point of connection that people have, they do it through Google and through YouTube, because YouTube is owned by Google. So the church has to be in that space where people are going to search for answers. You know, to Jeremy's point, this is the place where people are, and they're looking for answers. And so we have to be there in that space with them.
Dave, I would add to your Paul used the technology of his day, letter writing. He also used the technology of his day. I would call this the proto-internet, the Roman road system. There was this literal highway system connecting communities, allowing that snail mail to be delivered. We just live in a little bit faster version where our internet highways go slightly quicker, and with some still with some regulations, but you know.
Exactly.
But yes, it's the same exact impulse. All right, Sarah, what have you got? Why should faith communities have church online?
I would actually push it. Church to a lot of people just means worship services. And I would actually say that it's actually beyond just the worship services. So it's convening, it's learning, it's connecting, and it's also praying and worshiping. I'm sure that there's a fifth one in there if somebody wants to throw it out. Pastoral care. There we go. I found 5. And so it is essential because as everyone before me has mentioned, this is where the people are. So it is our job as ministers, as faith leaders, to bring the church into these spaces and to make sure that we are adapting, you know, just like stained glass makers brought Bible stories, just like Gutenberg did the Gutenberg Bible and the printed word. And so it is our call to adapt and to shape our faith into these online spaces.
Now that'll preach right there. And I'll just echo all of this and really carry off of what Sarah said. I think so often the church looks back to Gutenberg as like, look, we did it. We were the cutting edge of cultural communications technologies. And I feel like ever since we've just been playing catch up. This whole broadcast era came and went, and we're like, oh, how do we do that? And I think maybe right now churches are getting good at broadcast era stuff with like big cameras and fancy sets, and we can all pretend we're Walter Cronkite or something. But ladies and gentlemen, that's called, you know, a couple generations ago. No one knows how to use this internet era. Maybe corporations, they're using it for a very capitalistically driven endeavor. And that hopefully isn't the church's endeavor. So we're all in this brave new world together, figuring this out. And some might get scared by that, but I think that's really such a unique opportunity. And the only kind of punctuation I'll put on top of everything we've said is I am a firm believer, and I will fight anyone who disagrees, although I'm a pacifist, so that fight won't last long. Virtual is not the opposite of real. Virtual is the opposite of physical. They are both real. We're having a real conversation right now, even though none of us are in the same room, and only 2 of you are in the same state even. And just think, if someone ever says, oh, your internet friends aren't real friends, just say, well, what about that pen pal you had? Was that a real friend? I'm guessing they'll think it was. And the connections we make in these virtual spaces happen in some ways more instantaneous and meaningfully than others. Come on, people get married because they met online now. So who's to say that this stuff isn't real? So I think virtual church, this online church, is just as real because it encounters people in their real lives and their real spaces they live. So
And also, the brain science backs that up because our brains cannot tell the difference between a physical space and a digital space, which is why I felt this like divine presence when I was on church on Zoom this morning, because it was real.
It
It's
was
the same
real.
reason we also get so impacted by being inundated with all of this stressful and traumatic information, and also why cyberbullying for younger people has such an impact, because our brain can't tell the difference between, you know, Joe Schmo on the internet over there and Joe Schmo sitting right here telling me that I'm a horrible person. So if we want to counteract all the negativity on the earth and on the internet, time for the church to show up, baby. Come on.
No pressure. We can do this.
Yes, God.
Okay, we're gonna shift gears from that high level ideological thinking, and we're gonna get practical for a minute. And I'm really gonna look at Dave, Jeremy, and Sarah for this first question. Don't worry, Natalie and Kevin, we're coming back to you with some other ones. But we're going to talk nitty gritty how to live stream. And maybe within that, give kind of some commentary on Facebook versus YouTube. Which one should I pick and why? And granted, everyone watching, you wish you could get the whole tutorial on all the black magic Atom Mini that Jeremy has on his desk right now, but that'll be for another time. That's like a really fancy video switcher, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, and I really want one. We're just going to dip our toe in. I want us to just give some helpful resources. Oh, look, he just used it to show his other view. You show off.
Listen, pride cometh before the fall, so I'm not saying anything about you, but I'm just saying.
All right. Jeremy, since you just showed us how fancy you are, why don't you give us the initial answer? Imagine this as you're in the line to order coffee back before we were all self-quarantining, and someone says, hey, you do church online. How do I live stream? And should I put it to Facebook or YouTube? What's up with that?
Yeah, so the first thing that I say is we get to play with all these toys, but get out of your mind that you need any of them to do this stuff. If you've got a smartphone, if you've got a Facebook account, you don't even have to have a page for your church. You don't have to be the pastor or have an admin account. If you communicate digitally, you can use it to do it this way. And that could be FaceTiming with some friends and going through daily prayer. It could be just a check-in. All of those are real church things. But most practically, if you are on Facebook, that's where we start in our denomination, because that's where most of our folks are. That's where most everybody is on social media. Folks say it's declining, and maybe that's true, but it's still the biggest. So if you can only do one thing, that's a fantastic place to begin. And it's as simple as creating a post, hitting go live, put a quick description in, and just do it. Just grab your phone. If you work with a pastor and they're delivering a sermon, hold it up, but hold it like this, because this is how we film. Turn your phone this way, because that's the way we are on your screen right now. And just do that quick going live. It's almost like ripping off a Band-Aid. You can live in the ethereal thinking about it forever, or you can hit go live and just start experiencing doing it. I am not going to be the one to answer a lot of the question about YouTube, because it's not the platform that we use the most. Facebook is the direction that we go, but we have seen YouTube be an incredible tool in the last couple of weeks in our ministry, and I know Dave can jump in a bit more on using that.
So Dave, you're next in line behind this person for coffee in a world where we're no longer self-quarantining, and they say, okay, that Jeremy guy was nice, but what about you, AussieDave? How do I live stream? What's this YouTube thing that I keep seeing in all your videos? Apparently Facebook's over. But you posted that video on Facebook about YouTube. Now I'm even more confused. How does someone live stream church? And by church, again, like Sarah said, we mean worship, we mean small groups, we mean any of it.
Yeah. So that's a good point that you made. I did a video to Facebook about how to stream live on YouTube, and there's a reason for that. We have all these multiple channel options that are available to us. Why would we want to just pick one and just settle in that one? Don't we want to go to where the people are? And the people are on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube. So why not get to a position where we can live stream to all of them. And when it comes to YouTube and Facebook specifically, the way that you live stream is very, very similar. You hit the go live button on YouTube and you get the streaming key if you're using a desktop or an external camera of some description. You plug that into a software like OBS or Switcher Studio, all of which are free. obsproject.com is where you get that one. Switcher Studio is where you get that one. And you can literally just live stream directly from wherever you are, or even better is what I would suggest if you want to use both, is live stream to one. For example, live stream to YouTube. And I would argue YouTube because it goes beyond just the people who would normally come to your church. If you're live streaming to Facebook, the people who are following you on Facebook get notified. But when you do it on YouTube, as I said, second biggest search engine in the world, that's where people go to find answers. You're going to get a much bigger crowd. But when you live stream that, you can record it at exactly the same time through the software, then post it straight afterwards to Facebook and do a Facebook watch party where all of your normal people can come in and watch it in real time with you and track with the comments in exactly the same way as if it was live. It's just like a simulated live version of the same event. Then why not take that video, put it out onto an Instagram live through a similar sort of software, and you've covered all of your bases at that point. You can even put the links to the YouTube version onto Twitter as well. So you cover all the bases in some way, shape, or form. I think sometimes what we do is we try to either bite off too much, like we try to stream consecutively to 3 different platforms, and then we wonder why there's a spinning beach ball of death on everybody's, everybody's computer screen, which I'm sure today, like the new version of I couldn't find a car park was the stream was taking too long to buffer, right? That's the modern day version of that. So instead of trying to consecutively do it, think of strategic ways that you can leverage technology, maybe even a pre-recorded message or a pre-recorded worship set, and simulate live those streams to YouTube, then post them to Facebook, and then post them to Instagram. At our church, we obviously do a Sunday service, which we've been streaming for a long time online, multiple years. But this past week, with everybody isolated at home, what we did was we had one of our worship leaders stream live worship to YouTube from their living room. It was just them and a guitar, or them and a keyboard, no amplification, no microphones, no anything like that. And we just streamed that to YouTube. Once that stream was over, I uploaded that video for an on-demand on YouTube, posted it across to Instagram and IGTV, and then posted it to Facebook as well. So our audience was getting multiple views. We're getting as many people as possible to view that moment where we were encouraging them through some simple worship. It was only 15 minutes, but isolation breeds creativity, right? We are all isolated right now. So this is a time when the church has to be thinking creatively. Church doesn't have to look like it's always looked. It doesn't have to be a host coming up, 3 songs and then a message and then maybe a closing song. It doesn't have to look like that. It can look as simple as your pastor sitting in his living room with his iPhone, obviously horizontal, not vertical, and just simply streaming live and giving a message and then praying for people, but then also tracking along. This is the key for me, tracking along with the comments and engaging with people during that live stream. This is the moment where we have to be engaging more than ever before. And so it's a simple thing like asking questions. My whole social media strategy comes down to one simple formula. Question marks are greater than periods. Every time you leave a question mark or you live stream a question, what happens in that moment is you're inviting people into a conversation. And that's really what social media is all about. It's social and media, social media. So ask questions as you're doing that sort of thing, but do it on multiple platforms.
Dave, that is brilliant on so many accounts. I think the first portion of what you said, we all just thought you were a wizard for knowing what OBS is and all these things and how to push it to all these places. And then we quickly realized, oh, that's actually quite brilliant. And then just the way you describe the strategy behind broadcasting is just so helpful for us all to hear. It doesn't all have to be done simultaneously. It can be simple. It can be pre-recorded, which is a really great tip for people who are stressed out about going live with everything. You can do a lot pre-recorded. Tomorrow morning, start working on next Sunday. But I really love the emphasis you make on it's not just about distributing this broadcast, it's also the engagement. And if you are broadcasting without engaging, you're just, the person with the bullhorn on the corner yelling at people and they're all just annoyed by you. The focus has to be on engagement. So that's a great point. just look at your social media feed. What's the last punctuation on most of your posts? Is it mostly question marks or mostly periods? Question marks mean you're inviting participation and engagement. Periods mean you're just telling people to show up to stuff without even knowing if it's what they want to show up to. So
I just also posted a couple of things into the chat, including a link to OBS project because somebody had asked for that. And I also just want to say hello to David, who said, I'm either a wizard or Professor Snape. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, Professor Snape was a wizard, so you can be both. All right, Sarah, give us your point of view, because you.
I say, and I'm gonna do a nice little wrap up of everything, because I am not the technology wizard that Dave is, nor am I even close to Jeremy with all of his various tinkery toys. So I'm just gonna take it a step up in a good way, getting out of the nitty gritty details and really saying that make sure whatever you try, it doesn't have to be the exact same thing as the mega church down the road, but making sure that it's authentic to you, making sure that it's authentic to your community, and it's meeting the needs of the community. And so that could be that it's, a Bible study gathering, but maybe not live streaming the entire worship service, because sometimes that can actually be more distancing than it can be embracing. And so recognizing that as we're all entering into this unknown together, of really understanding where your strengths are as a community and then leaning into that. So maybe it is your worship ministry, and that is the case for lots of different parishes, lots of different congregations and parishes, and also having the understanding that you can go into that and you can ask ministry leaders what draws them most into your church community, and really relying on that in order to keep that connection going throughout the time. And I think Dave and Jeremy both said it, but it doesn't have to be live streamed. You can record it in advance and then put it up. So I'm just going to repeat that again once more for the people in the back, and recognize that you can still get conversation as well as information, and all of those various other pieces that people come to church for. Really, that feeding it looks different.
And I think that's a great point, Sarah. And I think just to really get like super technical on how do you upload a pre-recorded thing and make it simulated live, a couple ways. Dave mentioned, anyone can turn a Facebook video into a watch party, which then invites people to watch it in real time, like you're all kind of in the same virtual room together. When you're scheduling videos on both Facebook and YouTube, you can schedule it, and then there's a little like post as a premiere. It's on both platforms, and you check that, and then it means at that time you scheduled it, the video begins as if it was a live video. It's like you can't rewind, fast forward. It's playing in real time for the length of time it is, and then when it finishes, it's like a normal Facebook or YouTube video where people can rewatch it. So you can upload it. The other perk, if you set it as a premiere on Facebook, people can like click the little get a reminder. And so they get reminded and notified when it's there. Same on YouTube, they can get reminded when it's happening. And it gives you kind of a link you can share out in advance to join us for worship at 11 a.m. Here's the link. We'll see you in the comments. That lets you do all the work on Thursday and then just show up to church in your pajamas on Sunday. So yes, Sarah, give us your like 60-second Zoom tutorial, because I feel like a lot of people I know have had questions about Zoom. We're on it right now. I'll just give you some initial ones. How much does it cost? What do I need to do a small group? What do I need on Zoom to do church? And then maybe Kevin, you can maybe jump in after, since you just did church on Zoom today. So Sarah, give us your 60 seconds, and then Kevin, chime in as a response.
So we are in a Zoom webinar right now, as you all may have figured out. We can do our little Hollywood Squares moment. And a webinar is different than a meeting. As Jim mentioned, a webinar just has the panelists' faces and voices shown. Everyone else shows up in the chat box. In a meeting, everybody's faces are shown. So imagine a giant meeting with over 500 tiny little squares. So it is pretty crazy and amazing all at the same time. So you can use meetings for small groups and book discussions, Bible studies, any of the above, because the advantage is that voices and faces, everybody can participate. If this is wonderful. I love Zoom meetings because you can just like have people pop in, they can leave, it doesn't matter. And it is the exact same idea as if you're hosting something at the parish library and say, drop in, come on in, we'll be here for X amount of time. And so it does have that sense of familiarity and hosting. So I would definitely say that Zoom is the way to go because the baseline is that it's available for free. They will kick you off after 40 minutes if you have a Zoom meeting that is more than 2 people. There is a countdown. It is very serious. I don't joke about this. They will kick you off after 40 minutes. The next license up is the Pro license, and it's only $15 a month. And if you add on a Zoom webinar license, it's an additional $40. Again, so this is that option. There are some varying ideas about whether or not like the webinar is better for worship or the meeting is better for worship. Kevin, did you do a meeting for worship this morning?
Yes, my church did a Zoom meeting because I only have the Pro account. I don't have the webinar account.
That's okay.
And exactly. So there is options when you're setting up your Zoom account to have a waiting room, which means that when people log on, there needs to be a host or an admin who's assigned to letting people in. And you can also say, okay, mute upon entry. And then when you get in there, I just gave everyone on the call just like really specific instructions that said, everyone, we're muted right now. And this is because if we're all talking at once, we won't be able to hear each other.
To match.
Yeah, just really, really simple stuff. And people really enjoyed it. Again, my church is small. We had like, maybe 30 people show up for ours. So I would say like for ours, because we are just 30 people, it was easy. It was definitely easier to manage that. If it were me having 500 people on a call would feel overwhelming for me personally. But
So I think like, as Kevin mentioned, it's important to establish norms, just as if we would during a church service of like, this is how you take communion. This is how we take money. This is what our communion looks like. And so I think it's important to establish what that looks like online. Kevin saying, all of us are muted right now. This is how you unmute. If you would like to read prayers, give me a little holler in the DMs, and then I'll assign you to various things. So it really is taking the space and making it your own communities and figuring out what those norms look like, getting people introduced every time. It's just as if you were going to welcome visitors into your parish. Every time you need to do it. It doesn't matter how many people have been on Zoom before. It's always good to do those little establishing pieces.
Hey, Sarah, I'd heard that this week Zoom has relaxed some of their 40-minute threshold because of what's happening, and they know that so many people are working from home at the moment. Mm-hmm. Do you know anything about that?
Are you talking about for education?
Yeah, something. Well, I thought it was public. I could be completely wrong, but I heard that they were lifting some of the restrictions on the free account.
In my education circles, they're certainly doing that. And so that's like, if you're a part of a school or a university, that's being greatly reduced. And so that's pretty awesome. So
I also know if you try to contact Zoom's customer support right now, they're a little backed up. So just wait in line and it's okay. There's also, Zoom has so much potential. I've been a fan of it for years. I think someone asked the question, Zoom versus Google Hangouts. I have found Zoom to be more secure of a connection, less lagging, less droppedness. I used to use GoToMeeting for some stuff, and I'm pretty sure that was created in hell, and it was horrible. Zoom has just been like, here's a link, join this meeting. And it's super simple. You can join via the web browser. You can install the free app, which works great. Also, Zoom can do cool stuff like this, which is awesome, or like, here's my church right now, which is awesome. I began our live stream with this in the background. I'm like, welcome to the Riverside Church. Just kidding. So it's just fun to get to do that kind of stuff. And I think any company that takes themselves seriously, not seriously enough to do that stuff. Yes, Kevin?
I want a tutorial on how to do that because that looks really cool. I'm so sorry. That was
virtual background underneath your camera options. That was it. That was the entire background. That was the entire tutorial.
Yep, that was it. So Zoom.
I definitely did some in space this week.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Zoom has breakout rooms. If you get a high enough level account, you have to pay for some of these options, but you can like have your 100 people and send them into small group breakout rooms within the same Zoom meeting. Once you start paying for it, which sadly people want money for things still, it has a lot of potential. So you should all just write Lily grants and say, hey, can you give me a Lily grant to do this? They'll probably hate me if you actually all do that. But what I'm saying is Zoom has a lot of capabilities. dive in, play with it. And really the biggest thing in online church, period, especially in this current moment of how to live stream, because people are like, I got to get Sunday morning online. Just try. You're going to mess up. I like to think with design thinking, they say one of the greatest principles is fail fast, so you can learn from those mistakes. And I think the same is true here. Dive in. You're not going to get it all right. God is in the glitches. It's going to be okay. Even when you break down in tears because you think it's not, I think it still will be okay tomorrow. And then you can try something new, and you can try something new. And eventually you're going to have like a fancy video switcher like Jeremy and a cool mic like he's a DJ right now or something. But I'm guessing, Jeremy, you didn't have that on day one of doing church stuff.
No, not at all. And most days now, I don't use most of it. I mean, it's all set up so we can train different folks, but you don't need any of it. Don't tell the budget people, but we don't need any of this.
I like to think, I heard someone say once, and I've echoed this in many contexts, when it comes to like filming video, people are like, oh, I have to get this super big fancy camera. The best camera, this is true, period. The best camera is always the camera you know how to use, that you have closest at hand. It doesn't matter if I have a giant whatever DX1 Mac 3 with me. If I don't know how to use it, that's useless. But if I know how to use this, great. This is always in my pocket, so I can use it for live streaming, for recording anything. I make a ton of YouTube videos, and half the time I'm recording clips on this. The other half I'm using my GH5. My GH5 is currently in another room, so this one wins every time, basically. So same with live streaming. Use the tools you have easiest access to that you know how to use. And then maybe you start taking some time and learning how to use other tools you don't yet know how to use, because they might improve your work. But if you realize they're not improving the experience, it's just cool to be a tech head who goes to B&H photo too much, maybe you should just, slow down, slow down, because the point of all of this is to connect with people and to give them the best possible experience. All right, I'm rambling now. We're gonna
actually going to add into what you said.
Please, Natalie.
Just like two tiny little things. So going off of that whole like engagement piece that we were talking about before, we have to get ourselves out of the only way that we've all engaged in the majority way anyway with the internet and online has been in this capitalist frame. And so we have to kind of get ourselves out of that capitalist mindset. It isn't about like, how do we get this thing out and make sure people like us, but it's about how do we build an actual relationship. So that thing about the question mark being greater than the period is awesome. And then also when they respond to you, how do you respond back? Like, how do you continue the connection? The thing that I do notice with a lot of churches who are just starting this work is they're putting out the question, but then like the people are answering, nobody says anything back because they've gotten used to this whole model that as long as you put it out there, it's good, right? That's one thing. Two is with Zoom and doing church on that specific platform, I've had some questions come up around music because there is like, when you're talking, there's a little bit of a delay. And I guess it really kind of depends on the kind of church that you are. If you are the hymnal type that everybody likes to sing 4 parts, then like my suggestion is that you mute the mics of everybody except for the person who's playing the piano and or singing. And let that be like, and everybody just sing, like you can see each other, you're all singing, but you're not going to be able to hear each other and not like have the congregation lose their sanity. If they're used to that 4-part like structured, whatever, if they're a little looser congregation, then you can do some call and response stuff, works really well on Zoom. You can put like a beat to it and just add like a 5th beat or something, and that will be their cue for them all to come in, and miraculously it all like comes together. So those are my like quick and dirties for that if you're trying to do some Zoom type music stuff.
Hey, on music, does anyone have any comments or know anything about the legality of music when you're live streaming? People have been asking that. What can you stream? What do you need?
Dave must have an answer.
Come back to you, but Wizard Dave, give us your wisdom on legal live streaming.
First of all, I want to say, Natalie, I completely agree. We have to be engaging. And just a small, little, tiny thing. use people's names when you engage. When somebody comments and you comment back, use their name. Like, it just makes such a big difference. It makes people feel known and like you're making a connection with them. Too often we don't do that. Small little thing I always tell pastors, make sure when you're responding, A, respond. B, respond using somebody's name. It makes a whole big difference. When it comes to the legalities, a lot of the churches that I've spoken to in the last week, which has been a crazy amount of churches have been wanting this information, have the number one question has been, what about web streaming of music? Does my CCLI license cover that? And a lot of people think that it does. And if your church owns the URL that you are streaming to, then yes, you're covered 100%. So for example, for my church, northpoint.org, if we're streaming from northpoint.org, yes, we're covered on the CCLI license. But when it comes to social media and when it comes to YouTube and Facebook especially, if you're streaming on those platforms, you don't own the URL. It might have your name in it, but it's Facebook owned and it's YouTube owned. So what happens on Facebook, and a lot of large churches get hit with this. We've been hit with it at North Point. I know Life Church gets hit with this on a regular basis. If they're live streaming worship, what happens is they either get a copyright notice from Facebook saying that they're going to take the whole post down, or they mute the music part so that you're not breaching copyright anymore. So to get around that, a lot of churches, what they do is they stream on Sunday, and then come Monday morning, they take the whole service down and they replace it with just the message, because the message is not copyright owned. When it comes to YouTube, this happens to me all the time. North Point creates a lot at my church. We create a lot of our own music. Yet as soon as I try to upload some of our music to YouTube, within a second, the record label has sent me an email saying that it's a copyright violation. But here's the thing, the copyright claim that is made on that only pertains to whether or not my YouTube channel is monetized. So if I play, for argument's sake, let's say a Hillsong song, because that's the only thing I could think of at the moment who creates a lot of music. Say I stream a Hillsong song, what's going to happen is Hillsong's record label within minutes will send me an email saying a copyright claim has been made on your YouTube video. If this video is monetized, Hillsong will make the money off that video. But because I would say 99.8% of churches, in fact, I only know one church in the US that monetizes their account, their YouTube channel. Because most of them aren't monetized, it doesn't mean anything. I now just delete those emails all the time. But when it comes to Facebook, you have to be a little bit more strategic and a little bit more careful.
That's a good word, Dave. I ran into the same thing. For some reason, Beyonce doesn't like it when I use her music in my videos on YouTube, but I can think
she's okay with you using her music. She doesn't like the dancing that goes with it.
Well, when I'm dancing, okay, you're right. One more thing to wrap up this
It's your skill set.
In theory, and I say this because it doesn't always work because Zoom's kind of swamped right now. Zoom lets you, whether it's a meeting or a webinar, you can push from Zoom directly to Facebook Live or even live on YouTube. Or if you use something like OBS or Restream, you can push through that third-party system to then go to multiple channels at once. It's simply when you're in Zoom, if you're the host, you click more, and then it says live on Facebook, live on YouTube. You just click that, it opens a web page, it sets it up, and suddenly your Zoom meeting with like a small group of people, you could have a little church service here and push it out to Facebook, and your Facebook community can watch it in the comments. I say in theory because that's what we were planning on doing at Riverside this morning, and then it didn't work. The servers just kept spinning and spinning and spinning, and we were on the fence between pre-recording and scheduling as a premiere or going live in real time. And we decided to go live because last week we went live from our Nave with our system there, and I was able to be hosting in the comments on Facebook and texting our senior minister, we have this many people joining us, they're from this state, this state, this state, and he was able to in real time name them, so to speak, and call out where they're from. And I wanted that engagement feature, so I was like, we're gonna stick with live. And then the internet decided to say, no, you're not. But in theory, maybe not on a Sunday morning, Zoom to Facebook, Zoom to YouTube will work flawlessly. So how to live stream? Open up your Zoom account, click, go to Facebook. Suddenly you can have 5 people talking to each other and it's all live on Facebook. That's kind of the downfall. If you go through your phone to Facebook Live, it's really designed best for just the selfie approach or whatever you're seeing. You can bring in a co-host and a guest on Facebook Live, but I've found it to be a little clunky at times. Maybe someone can prove me wrong there. Anyway, I want us to spend our last few minutes, which, wow, these minutes have flown by. First, to let you know that I see all these questions flying by in the comments, in the Q&A. Like I said at the beginning, every Monday at 2 p.m., I'm going to be hosting a conversation like this with different experts in this area. And for a kind of a group coaching space, go to howtodochurchonline.com and you will see the thing to click to get notified of all that. And you can join us. And we're going to really week to week dive in on this in these spaces. And these people are great experts to lean into for any of your ongoing questions. But I want us to land, and I'm going to push this to begin with to Natalie and Kevin. How do we do pastoral care in a digital world? And maybe to begin that, Natalie, if you could start, answer the question, how do you do communion in a digital world? And then you can riff from there in whatever else you think about pastoral care.
Oh, okay, cool. Yes, so we have members, as I was saying, that are in the physical spaces, some who also are online and will never, I'm gonna take these out, I hope you guys can still hear me. Who will never be able to.
Oh no, I think you're
Put them back in. You got it, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? I hope that you can hear me now.
Yes, now you're perfect.
Okay. My AirPods, poor timing for quarantine, they have decided that this is the time that they're gonna start to give out, is right when I need them, and I need new ones now that we can't go outside. Anyway. Some of our members are online and trying to figure out ways that they can participate in real time is very important to me. So we provide for our members online communion, which means that they can receive these little communion packets. It's just like a little juice cup with a little wafer. There's a little piece of plastic or something that separates the two. And they just ask for them, and we send them like the entire year. Via mail with the instructions on what they can do. The packet is blessed. I pray over it, and then we let the UPS do what UPS does well. And then in that moment, they're able to, like, when we have communion every Sunday, every first Sunday of the month, they're able to like join us in that. We tell them if they miss a Sunday, to please do communion with someone else. That's a very specific opportunity to be able to kind of do this bread breaking together. So yeah, that's one tiny way that we're doing pastoral care. Our private messaging and direct messaging ends up being another way that we do pastoral care. I imagine, Kevin, yours are also very full in that way.
Oh, yes.
Safe, like asking questions that they wouldn't necessarily ask to your face, really, real talk. And, you know, sometimes they can get a little messy. People can be messy. A little dicey, but I have learned that if you lead with love and curiosity, that usually they're just looking for to be met in the heart place, right? They're usually like answering from some sort of pain or fear. So the direct messages and private messages is a really great place to be able to like extend some pastoral care. Often some of that extends to like needing to do phone calls and chat with people. But yeah, that's usually how it's kind of working out right now. I'm a chaplain at NYU, so a lot of my chaplain work ends up being right now via Skype and Zoom, and we have some international students, so that kind of plays into those spaces as well.
I love it, Natalie. I love it. Kevin, why don't you pick that up and talk about some of the ways you have always been pastoring people in online spaces, but especially now, and what can we learn from that, borrow from that, glean from that, as so many pastors and faith leaders are needing to respond to their congregants and their community in new ways in this moment. You've literally been doing this probably since you first got a Zanga account or something.
Yo, you remember Zanga? Yes. Listen, Zanga was my everything. I think the one thing I try to keep in mind, and this is the thing I push in any person who wants to do online ministry, who wants to be an influencer or a content creator, and as people who are creating content around spiritual matters, in the times like this, it has to be about the service to our people. And I cannot stress that enough, is that if your heart is not in a place where it's just like, we're doing this because we want to help people. That's really what it boils down to at the end of the day. Because yes, Of course I want to get my numbers up. Of course I want to sell stuff. Of course I want to do X, Y, Z because I got bills to pay. And at the end of the day, if my heart is only thinking about a bottom line and about analytics and about numbers, I will lose. I don't think the universe honors that. I don't think God honors that. And I think that anything you try out there, if it is backed with service and love, God fills in the gaps for the rest of it. So just wherever you are in the spectrum of like, we have a budget, we can just really invest in this online thing, great. Or you just church, like my church, we are month to month on our rent. We make it work. We piece it together because you know why? That's what we do. Second thing, pastoral care. For me, as somebody who is online all the time, this time is going to be so crucial for so many of us, especially if you're a ministry leader. You need to rest. You need to figure out when in your life you're going to turn all of this stuff off and say, I'm going to be at home right now. I'm going to be away from work, because now that work is coming home with us, these lines are getting really, really blurry. And we have to be a people who are like willing to say, hey, this is my boundary right here. And then also to say that this, if you lead with that example, the amount of people who are going to say, oh, maybe I should slow down my consumption of stuff. So I think it's not just about how are we going to care for people, but we have to teach them how to draw boundaries for themselves. Because a lot of people right now, like, we don't know how to function because we're constantly spinning in our own trauma. So lead by example, talk about your practices. And when you are interacting with people, make sure that you are big on the ministry of referral. If you are not a therapist, do not do a therapist job. If you are a person who is, just because you take medication doesn't mean that you need to say, oh, maybe you should talk to your doctor. No, tell your parishioners to go see a psychiatrist. The ministry of referral will save lives during this time. And on top of that, we need to be the people who are also like leading by the example of staying the F home if we can. You know what I'm saying? So take care of yourself, lead with service. I don't remember what else I said. Drink lots of water, I think.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands, that too.
Can I add one more thing?
Please.
Just to the communion thing that I said, listen, everybody's theology is different around it. And it may work for you that it's better to just consecrate every scrap of bread that someone can bring in the communion moment. My only advice is to just make sure that they're prepared, that they know what's coming, so they have an opportunity to engage, so they have an opportunity to feel like they can participate in that. Like, we're not going to be able to send everybody communion this month. Like, that's just not even on the plate. But if they can have something that they want to do communion with, then we're willing to meet them where they are. Like you all have already said, God fills the gap.
That's great.
Hey, can I jump in there as well and just add to what both of them just said? Think creatively. Like I said before, isolation breeds creativity. Think creatively. For the past couple of years, because my youngest daughter is dyslexic, I've been leveraging my Instagram account to literally teach the Bible through photos, because I'm a photographer as well, to my daughter, because that's how she learns. And now, like, for the past couple of months, I've been teaching 50,000 people Hebrew through my Instagram account. It doesn't have to look like it might always want to look, but I want to pick up specifically. I loved what Kevin said. Oh my gosh. This online world never closes down. It doesn't have office hours. It's constantly going. There's always notifications coming through. So we have to lead the charge on reminding people and teaching people how to stop. Sometimes I think in Christian world, especially in Christian online world, we get so caught up following in the steps of Jesus that we forget about the stops of Jesus. Jesus stopped and rested every single week. We need to do the same thing. You need to introduce some sort of technological Sabbath. That's what we do in our house. All phones get turned off on Friday night and go into a basket, and we put that basket away, and nobody gets online for a 24-hour period, because we have to follow in the stops of Jesus as well. So I just wanted to pick up on that, because I think that that's so key, Kevin. Thank you for sharing that.
That's great, David. Jeremy's got a hand up already. Yep. I was going to everybody for one final word, so thank you for reading my mind. Jeremy, pick up that one.
Let me add this to the 478 folks that are here with us. Take your hands off your keyboard for a second. Take a deep breath and breathe it out. There's so much of this that is overwhelming to those of us that do it every day. There's so much gear in front of me. There are so many options. There is so many ways it can all fall apart, but I want to just encourage you, you don't have to do it all. You don't have to know how to use Twitter and Instagram and Facebook Live and know what OBS streaming is. Those are all great things, but showing up, being here to say, this is a new world and we want to minister in a new way, you're already doing it. We're all here to help. We'll give you tools, and anything we don't know, there's a 15-year-old on YouTube who's already done it. Google it all. That's all we're doing. But I just want to encourage you to say, what you're doing is enough. Don't come to every webinar to learn a new thing. We're here to encourage you, to be with you, but you're already doing ministry. Just breathe. We're going to get through it.
Amen to that.
Amen.
Sarah, any final words from you before we wrap this thing up and go do some mindful breathing?
I say definitely take deep breaths in. Know that you are not being compared to anyone else, whether the church down the street or at your regional assembly. So know that you are doing what is best for your people at the pace that you can control. And so, by trying one new thing each week, you are creating your congregation to be adaptive and flexible, which is exactly what we need in this time. And gathering together is the most important thing we can do to continue being the body of Christ.
That's so perfect. I often, this whole world of online everything, digital anything, maybe it's, I don't know if I know all of your backstories enough to know this, but at least for me, I know I didn't study any of this. I didn't go to school for anything digital, anything media. I have a youth ministry degree and an MDiv. I learned Bible, basically. I can tell you some Greek and Hebrew, but I decided when I was in seminary learning Greek and Hebrew to teach myself CSS and HTML because I thought these might be useful languages for the future of the church. But the point is, you can learn a lot if you learn things one thing at a time. If you try to become, if you try to get Jeremy's desk set up tomorrow, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're not going to know what to do. One time I went back, one of my favorite podcasts is Radiolab. They make phenomenal episodes, storytelling, soundscaping. Jad Abumrad is the best soundscape artist I've ever heard. I went back and listened to their first episode. It's like from 15 years ago. It was still good, but it's nowhere near as good as their stuff now. And it made me realize everyone has to start at episode 1. If you're doing any new project, you can only start at episode 1. And the only way you get to episode 100 is by doing it 100 times. You have to put in the time and the work, and it's going to take time and work. And at times you might want to pause and quit. And maybe, if you evaluate that's the right choice, you can. But don't think you need to be as good as someone who's been doing it for this amount of time if you're just starting. Like right now, I'm talking to you with this microphone. I didn't own this microphone until like a year ago. And then I was like, I want to sound like this on the microphone. So I decided to buy a fancy microphone. But it took me years of tinkering and trying and failing and learning and learning and learning. And eventually you start hosting webinars on how to do church online. And that's what we all need, because it's more than just this moment when we're all asking the question, how do we do church online? We need to keep asking this question a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there'll probably be some new medium other than online. So we'll need to do church in that space too. Church on Mars, it'll be at that point with Elon Musk and friends. But ladies and gentlemen, and siblings and sisters and brothers, the point of this is to simply say, in whatever way you are finding that next step forward to help your community connect with one another and for you to connect with them wherever they are, that is exactly what you are called to do, and use it. I like to say we spread the good news of God's love and justice by any media necessary. And so whatever media you have at your disposal to do that, please do that. And once again, thank you to these 5 lovely human beings for spending an hour and 8 minutes with us here on this call. To the 400 plus of you who've been watching live, you are incredible human beings. This video is recorded, will be available. You'll get an email telling you where to go to watch it. You can share it, all that good stuff. And then, like I said, every Monday, I'll be hosting a call like this, but it'll be a meeting, not a webinar. You know the difference now. So all 100 of us can hang out together and chat about a whole bunch of stuff. And I'll be calling up my friends and other people to say, hey, can you be my conversation partner for that thing? So you might see these people hang out with me, but seriously, look them all up. They're brilliant. They have nothing but great ideas and advice to share with you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And all the questions we didn't get to, I'm sorry, but we'll get to them in upcoming conversations as well. Go enjoy.
Feel free to reach out, and maybe we can answer, maybe we can tag team some of these questions. Reach out to all of us on social media.
Yeah. Does everyone want to share their handles real quick as to where you can find us?
Oh, yes, that's good. I'm Diva Does Divinity on all 3 platforms.
Dave just got his in there. Dave is AussieDave. Kevin, you're what, _ the Kevin Garcia?
No, I'm at the Kevin Garcia _ on Twitter, but then everywhere else is just the Kevin Garcia.
You got Sarah digitally over here. At least she's over here on my screen. Jeremy, you're just Jeremy Tackett.
It's just at Jeremy Tackett. All everything. Yep.
That's
I'm
white
then
privilege
early.
right there, guys.
I'm Ideas Done Daily because I like to have ideas and do them every day. And I've just been doing that handle for enough. You just stick with it. AussieDave, Jeremy Tackett, Diva Does Divinity, Kevin Garcia _ Sarah digitally, Ideas Done Daily.
The Kevin Garcia. Don't get it
The
wrong.
Kevin Garcia. Oh, there's another one. The Kevin Garcia.
Jesus wept.
Christ.
All right, everybody.
Thanks,
Peace
everybody.
with you.
Sundays. Grace
Thanks,
and peace.
guys.
We'll see you all when we see you all
Guys.
on Facebook.
Cheers.
Blessings.
Bye.
Be well.